Everybody do me a favor, stand up, find 5 people you didn't come to church with and tell them one thing. Don't try anything that you saw on that video at home. Do that. Nothing. Hug 5, come on. You guys can be seated. Good morning. Everybody looks amazing, way above average. Look around the room at all the lovely people. Can you do that? It's really cool. If you have your Bibles, yeah, that's good. If you have your Bibles, turn to Matthew 25. We're going to be looking at a parable of Jesus that I've preached on many times before. It's a passage, this parable, near and dear to my heart. I haven't preached on it in over 2 years. I think I need to preach on it really every 6 months. We're in a series, you'll see on the screen, called We Can't Stay Here. This is the final week of this as we jumped into a new year, asking ourselves some very powerful questions. Week 1, we looked at 4 lepers in 2 Kings, if you weren't with us. What did we learn from these 4 lepers? They were caught between a rock and a hard place. They were right outside the city walls, the city gates of Samaria. The Aramaean army was sieging the city of Samaria, so the city had no food, no provisions. They had actually turned to cannibalism. And here you have 4 men with a disease that no one wanted to get around them, and they were caught in a place to where there was going to be a huge decision that had to be made. We talked about that last week. And so we learned from these 4 lepers these 3 thoughts. And it really goes to my life, it goes to your life, it goes to our church. I want you to look at me real quick. This message is for me this week, okay? It's really for Greensboro. It's really for our South Knoxville campus and you as well, but I'm preaching to myself. It's one of those messages that I need to once again convince myself that I want to be willing to take a risk, that I have no alternative. The 4 lepers taught us this. They asked themselves this question. Well, you know what? We're caught in the middle of a place that we really can't stay here or bad things are going to happen. But if we retreat back into the city of Samaria, there's no food there. No one's going to give us anything there. We're going to die. If we remain where we are, 2 Kings actually says the words, if we can't stay here, or we're going to die, the only choice that they had was to run to God, to take a chance and surrender, to know that God was not going to let them down as they just marched forward in this life in which we live. That was their only chance. No matter what we go through in life, tough things, loss, all of that, we have one opportunity to say, God, I want my faith to move towards you, to run towards you. No matter what happens in life, I have to put my faith and my trust in you. I have to take a chance and surrender. So that was week 1. Last week we talked about being spiritually consumed, spiritually inconsistent, or spiritually apathetic. Where are you? Apathetic. I don't care. Take it or leave it. Just kind of maybe stay where I'm at. Well, we can be spiritually inconsistent as well. Remember the roller coaster? No, we're not going to do that again. Y'all look foolish. But are we going to be spiritually consumed? What does that mean? Are we going to get it all right all the time? No. But some of us, it's time to take a risk. That's the word for the day, risk. So I want you to write this down. I want you to think about this. This is kind of where this message, I believe, as I prayed through it and thought about where we're going to end this little 3-week series before we jump into a new series next week called Lonely Planet. There was a magazine that I get. It's called Our State Magazine. It's from the state of North Carolina. One of the guys that goes to our Greensboro campus is an advertiser for Our State Magazine. And so he gave Javon and I a subscription because he knows I'm from North Carolina. I love that state. I love the region where our Greensboro campus is. So I got the magazine in the mail a few weeks ago. And on the front of the magazine was this huge biscuit. I mean, oh, it looked good. There was like honey flowing over the biscuit. You don't show a fat boy a picture of a biscuit. And so I'm reading this magazine at the kitchen table. My son walks in. He sees that. And what is his favorite phrase? This next generation phrase he loves to say, risk it for the biscuit. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm willing to risk a lot for a biscuit. So I want you to write this down, and this is really what it came from. Just a few weeks ago, I thought about how we're going to equate these three words with what I'm after today. Being a human being equals risk. Do you know that? We all are risk takers. You're like, no, I'm not. I don't like to take risks. The video you just saw, some of you are like, that is the dumbest stuff I've ever seen, ever. Those people have a death wish. It's interesting. I'm 48. I'll be 49. Do you remember, guys, when we were 18 to 22 years old, the stuff that we would do? It's nothing compared to what this generation does today. The people, this extreme sports people, my son, he challenges me and he scares me to death. He is a risk taker. He will risk it for the biscuit. What does that mean? No risk, no reward. He has a cousin, my nephew. He's crazier than Mason. He will do backflips over stupid stuff. Although I'm like, I would never have done that. And what Connor will say is he will say these words. And maybe you next generation, guys and girls, you know this word. He will say, I'm about to send it. Who's ever heard the word send it? That means I'm not really going to think through what I'm going to do here. But I'm going to hurl myself through the air like I just don't care. And he's going to, hey, Mason, I'm going to send it. And my son will respond, risk it for the biscuit. And I think to myself in my old age, I'm like, I'm not going to send anything. I might partake in something, but I'll hurt myself. It won't be good. And you think about this. I think about this a lot. The older I get, the less willing I am to take risks sometimes. And you're like, Brent, are you talking about extreme sports? Are you going to go high wire across your garage? We're going to talk about this in the spiritual terms, but the logic really holds together. The older we get, the less willing we are to take a risk, and all the while we forget the first point. Ready? Everyone here actually does take risk. We take risk. And I think a lot about this. We, as middle-aged people that love to be like armchair quarterbacks, we're in the couch potato Olympics. We watch stuff like the X Games Aspen that's on ESPN this week, and we're like, I would never take a snowmobile and intentionally flip it over my head. We forgot that these athletes are in incredible shape. Their endorphin levels spike so much as they do things. Do you realize the feeling, the goodness that they feel when they do that? And all the while, as we sit in our chair, my doctor was here last night, and he will attest to us middle-aged people that are growing, not in our faith, but in our physical being, right? All the while, here's the risk that we take. Blood pressure rises. Cholesterol piles up in our arteries. We have incredibly intensive stress levels that pile on us. Our lungs, we used to, when we were 18 or 20, we could swim 2 or 3 laps under the water in the pool at the beach. Now we swim like 12 yards. Everybody, our lungs take wimpy little breaths. Our muscle tone deteriorates. And we all sit around in some little arrogant way going, I would never do that stuff. Do you realize maybe it's more risky to sit in a chair than to hurl ourselves through the air? So I'm going to do this. This section, I need y'all to catch me. I'm going to jump as... The logic holds true for me because I watch my son at a young age do crazy things that I would love to do. I'm challenged by, I'm inspired by, and I say to myself, I'm too afraid. I can't do that. I'll have to go, get worked on, or Advil will only work so much in my life. Case in point, last year I was out west skiing. I was skiing through a terrain park. I wasn't doing any of the terrain park features. I'm a middle-aged guy. I was skiing around the features, thinking what it would be like if I actually hit those features. I came to this rail that had stairs, concrete stairs, and I pulled up. I just skied right down below it, and I looked back at it, and I thought to myself, I'm like, there's no way. Who would do that? Look at the danger involved. And as soon as I turned my head and looked, here comes my son right behind me. This is Mason, a picture last year. He's spread eagle with his skis, and all I could hear him say is, "Send it!" And I'm thinking, man, I made him go do it again so I could take a picture. And I think to myself, oh, but we all do, right? He's young and he's bold, and, we can mend easier. And, hey, you know what? If God is for us, who can be against us? Are we so old that we're not willing to take a chance and say, God, I need to run to you? You know what? And you're not going to let me down. It's interesting. We all take risk. There's no such thing as a risk-free life. It'll come on the screen. I know you don't want to hear it, but it's true. Some of you are going to get mad at me because I'm going to create a phobia in your life right now. Think of the risk that we take. We don't ever think about it, but these are the risks that we take. No such thing as a risk-free life. Remember that. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. There's a picture of a bed behind me. You have a 1 in 2 million chance of dying tomorrow falling out of your bed. There's actually a study that's been done, which is weird for me. Brushing your teeth, for those of you that brush your teeth, which hopefully that's most of us, you flirted with a 0.0268% chance that the local water supply has an infectious bacteria in it when you brushed your teeth this morning. You're like, that's it, I'm only brushing with Fiji water from here on out. Shaving, men are at risk 1 in 7,000 chance of being seriously injured by shaving tomorrow. Some of you are like, that's why I have a beard. Automobiles, man, talking about danger. This week I was driving down Maples Branch, come to Pittman Center, 3-car accident. Thank God no one was injured. I can't believe it. One car was flipped over. I pulled right up on it. We had a volunteer fireman that goes to our church working it already. One of our guys were already out cleaning the road. And 2 of the cars that hit each other, I can't believe one car did not go down in the river. The water has been up lately, and where he was, the trees were pretty thin. That car could have easily gone down in that river. They were all dazed right there. I was thinking, man, the risk that we take, no one thinks about it. We get in our car, we drive down the road. You don't understand that there's a huge chance bad things can happen. Sitting at home, there's a huge chance of sitting at home. Bad things can happen. Sidewalks, pedestrians, especially if you're texting. Have you noticed lately there is an epidemic of people getting hit by automobiles because they walk right in front of them as they do that? Traveling by air, rail, water. Jeff Wolf, who's on staff at the church, he has the dumbest logic that I know. He just does not think rationally. He will not get on an airplane. He says if men were meant to fly, we'd have wings, and that's what he does right there. He's like, if I have to fly, you got to tranquilize me. Although he's 57 years old, and he and his wife, you know what they love to do? Get on their motorcycle and ride around town. He's so dumb. He told me the other day, well, I would get in a hot air balloon. I'm like, Jeff, I've been in a hot air balloon. There's little strings from a wooden basket, and a large flame right over your head, and you won't get in an airplane. But he'll zip line. You're like, Brent, you lost it. I know, and I preached on it before, and I want to go to one of my favorite passages of Scripture. We're going to read for a while, Matthew 25. We're going to start in verse 14. We're going to read through verse 30. I'm going to read you a parable that's challenging. Because here's what I believe, and everybody look at me real quick. Living a Christian life involves a risk. You're going to risk of people judging you. You're going to really carry the risk of being misunderstood. But mostly in my life, the risk is I have to surrender and trust God. I've got to be willing to risk it for the biscuit. I've got to be willing to send it. Isaiah bears it out. Here am I, Lord, send me. And sometimes the older I get, the older we get as a church, it's easy to pack it in. It's easy to say, you know what, let's just kind of see if we can remain where we're at. And I wonder what the Bible has to say about that. Should we be people that are play it safe people, or should we be people that actually take a risk? This is an interesting take. Jesus is talking, so there's so much goodness here, layers that we can learn from. And so I just want to read what is known as the parable of the talents. Now I'm going to read from the NIV version. It's a little different. I really do like the King James version better here because I like the word talent in that translation. The New American Standard will say the word talent as well. And so some of you are like, well, talent, we get confused by that. We're not talking about America's Got Talent. A talent is a significant amount of money. So the NIV is going to use the words bags of gold. And I figured, hey, that's universal from years gone by to today to tomorrow, right? Bags of gold we understand as significant amounts of money. So I want to read for a while. I want you to be challenged by this. I want us to think about this. Are we supposed to take a risk or not? Again, it would be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one servant, he gave 5 bags of gold. To another, 2 bags, and to another servant, only 1 bag of gold, each according to his ability. So everybody look at me. This is where a lot of people will get mad, especially today, and they're going to go this. Well, that's not fair. Why did one get 5 and one get 2, and that one poor dude only got 1? Everybody look right here. Life is not fair. Gotcha. All right. To each he gave according to his ability. Remember that. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more bags. But the man who received only 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5 back. Hey, master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. It doesn't ever tell us how they did that. They took a risk. They invested what they had. It never says how. It says that they did. What does his master say in verse 21? Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came and said, Master, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold, or 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold. Master, he said, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid. And I went out and I hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. He didn't squander it. He didn't go to Vegas with it. Didn't go to Harrah's. He brought back what was the master's, but he didn't do anything with it. He just remained. Listen to this verse of Scripture. This verse actually, from the time I was 17 years old until now, keeps me up at night. His master said in verse 26, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and I gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would at least have received some interest back. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one with 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have it in abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. Verse 30 is like, wow. and throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. A couple things I want you to write down. It won't come on the screen. It's just straight from my Life Application Bible. If you have one, it'll say the same thing. A couple of things. A talent. These bags of gold, what do they represent? Any kind of resource that we are given according to our abilities by God. This talent represents any kind of resource that we are given according to our abilities by God. God expects us to invest our talents, our resources. I mean, it's Jesus Christ speaking here. We are responsible to use well what God has given to us. I am responsible. You are responsible. So the issue here, what is the issue from Matthew 25? The issue is, ready, not how much we have, but how well we use what we have. The overriding truth, and I put it in these terms, those willing to risk nothing actually risk losing everything. My life application says the last man, this man with one talent, one bag of gold, was only thinking of himself. He hoped to what? To play it safe, to protect himself, and he was judged for his self-centeredness. Wow. So for me, this passage speaks to me on lots of levels in my own life. Am I using what God has given me? My resources, am I investing it in God's kingdom? We could talk about money. We could talk about our financial life. Where are you? Are you a risk taker or not? But really, I want to talk about us as a church. I want to talk about our spiritual lives for a minute. I want us to ask ourselves some questions. Are we self-centered? Are we here to caretake, to play it safe? Or are we going to invest what God has given us? If we are faithful with the little, Matthew 25 says, you know what? We will be given more. And we can actually have it said to us, well done, good and faithful servant. Number 2, write it down. Risk takers keep climbing. Risk takers keep moving. Risk takers understand what the lepers understood in 2 Kings, that you can't stay where we're at. We cannot stay here. Risk takers keep climbing. I want you to write it down. I want you to think about that. Remember it over and over. Those willing to risk nothing actually risk losing everything. Risk takers, though, understand this. It's not a one-time deal. Risk taking is a way of life. I wrote it in my journal a long time ago. I go back to it often. I'm sure Zig Ziglar said it. The more comfortable we are with failure, the more we'll take risk. The more risk we take, the more opportunities we have. The more opportunities we have, the greater the chance for success. For me, why I'm preaching to myself is I once again have to remind myself I have to be comfortable with failure. I have to say, God, I will take a risk and follow you. I don't exactly know how all of this is going to work out, but I will take the risk, and I'm going to own and understand that you will not let me down. In the life of our church, every risk that we have taken, God has not let us down. Why? Because we did not want to remain where we are. We wanted to take a chance and run to Him, because that's life. You're either growing or you're dying. Number 3, risk takers, and it's our church, and it should be our lives, and this is what we have to fight. This is the faith fight we fight. Ready? Risk takers go against conventional wisdom. I get inspired by people that take risk. So do you. I love a couple of stories. One story in particular is around 1904. It was a student at Bern University. He was a physics student that turned in a doctoral dissertation that got a bad grade. And here's what the professor said about this particular student: your doctoral dissertation is irrelevant for the day and is full of fluff. I'm glad this guy continued to take a risk and didn't discourage. Look at this physics student at the time. Some of you know who this person is. You're like, I did not know Charlie Chaplin went to Bern. And Albert Einstein. I love this next story. It just inspires me. I still think about this a lot. Wilma Rudolph. She was 20 out of 22 children in her home. Her mom and dad had 22 kids. Talking about taking a risk. That's insane. She was born premature. She had health issues. She struggled when she was young. She got scarlet fever and double pneumonia, which left her left leg paralyzed for most of her young life. She could not walk. They built a metal brace around her leg so she could be supported enough to try to move around and walk. And by the age 12, she removed on her own her metal brace, and she developed a rhythmic walk, which to the doctors said was a miracle. After that, she wanted to run races. The girl that was paralyzed from her left leg and finally developed a rhythmic walk, but she began to run races, and she entered races for 3 years, and every race she entered, she came in last every single time. And people said, why are you going to keep moving forward? Quit doing this. Why are you putting yourself through this? Why would you take this risk? She kept going, she kept going, she kept going. One day, true story, I love true stories, she entered a race and won. After that, she won another race, and she won another race, and she won another race, and she kept winning races. And Wilma Rudolph, the girl that couldn't walk, eventually won not one, not two, but 3 Olympic gold medals. And you're like, I love that. What's our excuse? Many of us are willing to sit in our chair and remain where we're at. Today, and I want you to listen to me, I really think through this. Today, our motto, and this is sad, but this is our life's motto today. In the church, at home, in our culture, it doesn't matter. Here's our motto, ready? If in doubt, don't go out. If in doubt, don't go out. Some of you, case in point, I'm not going skating. I could hurt myself. If in doubt, don't go out. That's our motto. I would rather stay home, order Uber Eats if we I don't know if we'll ever get that in Sevierville. Binge watch Netflix. I don't want to leave my house. Crazy things happen. We won't let remember in the 80s, our parents would let us ride our bikes everywhere. We don't let our kids do nothing. You're like, Brent, it's a crazy, dangerous world. You're right. But it's a world in which we live. And I promise you, there is no such thing as a risk-free life. And our motto today has seeped into the church. And so the church motto is, if in doubt, we ain't going to do it. Thank God we found Jesus. The rest of the people can die and go to hell. Other people coming in here would mess our church up. That's a motto of a lot of churches today. One of my favorite stories, and I think it's just so powerful, I think about it. I still think about it all the time. A man sat on the beach in Jacksonville, Florida one day, and he watched as lifeguard after lifeguard jumped from their towers, swam into treacherous surf to save people on a very treacherous day on the Atlantic Ocean. All day long, he watched as one lifeguard after another jumped from their tower, put that little thing on, pulled the David Hasselhoff, swam out into the ocean, saved person after person all day long. He was inspired by that. So he decided, which is a rare thing for people to do, he decided to walk into the lifeguard station just to thank them for their dedication. He walked in, and there was a plaque on the wall that changed his life. And in red words, this plaque, ready? It said, if in doubt, go, was their motto. And they were taught as lifeguards, if there's a doubt, get off your tower, get out there, and save people. If there's a doubt, go. And he said this is the statement that stays with me. He said, that statement should be on every church wall in America and every Christian soul in America. Not the statement, if in doubt, don't go out, which is where most of us are. Those willing to risk nothing actually risk losing everything if we don't watch it. Matthew 25 bears it out. This message, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, is not mine. I plagiarized it. I didn't really think, I kind of made it my own, but it's not really my message. I first heard this message in so many words in 1987. I was 17 years old. It was the year that I was called into the ministry. My dad would preach a message that he would be known for most of his pastoral career. He would preach a message, and the words were a little different than mine, but I've used the words today. He would preach a message that said, listen, I don't want to be an undertaker. I don't want us to be caretakers. I want us to be risk takers. And he would preach a message, are we going to be a risk-taking church, a caretaking church, or an undertaking church? Because if we're not a risk-taking church, we'll turn into caretakers. A lot of churches are there, but you know what happens, right? You take care too much, you oversee the undertaking process of a church really quickly. They'll die. I was 17 when my dad would thunder away, and he would say, I want to be a risk taker. How about you? And that was the year that God called me into ministry. And I think Dad probably preached that message for his own son, for me. And so I'll tell you with boldness, you might not like it. I get it. I understand. I was called to ministry at 17, and I told God, I would rather tick people off than you off all day. My calling is between you and me, God, and I want nothing to do with this right here. I am not going to be a part of a church. If I ever get to be the lead pastor of a church of my own, I am not interested in caretaking a little Christian country club and making everybody as happy as we possibly can be. I don't have any interest in that. I'll tell you that right now. I want to be a risk taker. I want to be a soul-saving station. And you're like, amen. But you know what? There's a lot of people that have come in this church and left the church. This is what we should be first, Brent. Hey, no, we'll caretake. We love you. We're with you. We'll walk every single day with you. But you know what? Our mindset better be this first, or I have no interest in pastoring this church if this is not the case. Greensboro, you guys will love this. I was with them last Sunday night. I'll close with this. I didn't get a chance to hug your necks and shake your hands this service last Sunday because I ran down the fire escape to beat all y'all out of the parking lot. The reason was I had to be in Greensboro at 5 o'clock. I left here at 12:15. It's a 4-hour drive. I didn't even get a chance to stop and eat lunch. My wife made me a PB&J that I ate in the car. We rushed there just in case there was traffic through the gorge or whatever. We got there about 30 minutes early so we could go spend some time. And listen, I told Greensboro, look at me. I told them this straight up, and they will know I said it. I said, listen, I'm not interested at all in missing about 500 or 600 people in my church to get a chance to hug them and let them know how awesome they are and how great it was to be in church so I could run down the fire escape, drive to Greensboro, and we can celebrate a little Christian country club that we've all renovated together where you 100 people will all pat each other on the back and go, look at our great little church we have now. I said, we did not do this for you. Y'all came. Now, I'm picking on them. They came and ate the chicken. The chicken was great. We had a great meal. 100 of them. We have 100 people come to church, and we had a banquet, and 100 of them showed up. I don't know if it was to hear me or eat the chicken. I'm not sure which one. But here's what happened. As of last Sunday night, we had 100 of them show up to eat the chicken and celebrate our little building, and 8 of them had signed up to come pray. Ooh. We had a little come to Jesus moment. I said, guys, we're not here just for ourselves. We're here to be a soul-saving station. We as a church, and I bragged on you guys. Our Sevierville campus family, we're in it you know what? We're going to risk take. We're here to win people for Jesus Christ. What about you? And boy, you know what? After that, I think 50 of them signed up to pray. They all, I know I convicted them. We'll call it guilt. Convicted them to pray. And I'm like, listen, what's it going to be? We cannot be. You guys, I'm telling you, Greensboro's lived it out. They've been caretaking for years. And if we did not intercede in the process, they were overseeing the undertaking of a church. They had gone from 80 to 50 to 40 to the day we walked in, 30-some people because they were trying to caretake the few. And now we see people just a year later, 105 people came to church, and 100 of them showed up for the meal and just the celebration of now we begin to reach people. And I said, guys, this is the church that we are now a part of. And I'm going to ask you the same question. Are we going to be a risk-taking church, continually moving forward, saying, God, you got us. We'll keep moving forward, and you won't let us down. What's it going to be? For me, I want to be a risk-taker. I got my shirt on. I know what you're thinking. That's a big ask shirt. I got you. I got you. Word K. I wear it from time to time just to keep us on our piece. Next week, we have a series called Lonely Planet. Many of our family and friends are struggling with loneliness today. There ain't no better time to invite somebody to come to church to hear a message that they need that can really affect them than next week. Are we going to sit on our hands? Or are we going to take a risk? You're like, Brent, look around. Where can we put people? You know what? Some of us, we might need to move into Saturday night. Some of us, we might need to park as far away from the building as we can. We got to make more room for more people to come hear about Jesus Christ. We will do what it takes. But I am not going to be old and look back at a young church, my young son, and say, you know what? I'm not doing that stuff anymore. That's too scary. I want it to be said of me and you, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a little, and you were given more. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God, I come before you. I close this service as we close with Life Change on Display, and we sing this little song that we've been singing. God, use this message. Allow it to affect us. Allow people to understand my heart. I love it that we do life together. I love it that we can take care of each other. Don't ever get me wrong, but God, the attitude, our thinking, the way we approach and attack life. Are we going to take a risk? Marriages in this room. You know what? Our marriage might be on the brink of disaster. You know what the risk that they got to take is not to walk away from each other, but to spend more time with you, God. To grow closer to you, God. They will grow closer to each other. Take a risk and not be so self-centered. For men and women, all of us of faith, let us stay planted in our faith. Let us take that risk to never waffle because the culture says it's not relevant anymore. God, we know what's true, and allow the truth to set us free. Allow us to invest what you've given us for you. Give it to you, surrender to you, take that chance, run to you. You will not let us down. In Jesus' name we pray.